Hey ghouls and gals, welcome back to my channel. My name is Taylor and today's video is going to be a book recommendations video. I have compiled 5 book recs for haunted house horror. During the months of September and October on this channel, I am going to try and put out extra content, just some more book recommendations for you. I love horror, I read horror year round, but I know not everyone does, or some people choose to just read horror during the fall months. That's totally okay. We're happy to have you, but I know that a lot of people are looking for some great horror books to read during spooky season. So I have compiled some of my favorite haunted house horror books to recommend for you today. Haunted houses are really integral to the horror genre. I feel like when people think of, in particular, paranormal horror, haunted houses are a staple, a trademark of the genre. Some of my very favorite books and movies have to deal with haunted houses or haunted locations, so I'm really excited to talk about these books with you all today. So without further ado, let's just hop right into the haunted houses book recs. The first recommendation that I have for y'all today is a classic. That is going to be the Amityville Horror by J. Anson. This is billed as a true story. Now, this obviously depends on how much you put stock into this story, or if you're a believer or if you're not a believer, but this is a true story. It's nonfiction, but it is written like a narrative novel. This is one where perhaps you know this story but haven't read the book, or have watched one of the many movie adaptations of this story, but this is just such a classic, and if you haven't read it, I think it's perfect for the autumn. On December 28th, 1975, a family moves into a beautiful house. However, less than a week later, they have moved out, claiming that there is paranormal activity inside the house. This is a classic. I feel like, especially in the movie genre, if you think of haunted house horror, the Amityville Horror is sure to come up. This is a whole lot of fun. You know, this probably isn't true. The haunting seems to be greatly exaggerated if there was a haunting at all, but this is one where it's just a lot of fun to read, even if you don't believe in ghosts at all. It's a wild story. It's got a little bit of true crime. It's got a gorgeous New England setting and a family moving into a house of their dreams that soon becomes their nightmares. This is just a whole lot of fun. So if you want something a little vintage Halloween, something that screams 70s, then I definitely would recommend you pick this book up. It's a whole lot of fun, and it's definitely a classic for a reason. Again, whether or not this is a true story or not, they claim that it is, but this is one that the story is very engaging whether you believe it or not. The next book recommendation that I have is actually a graphic novel series, and that would be the Locke and Key series by Joe Hill and Gabriel Rodriguez. Now, this is not a traditional haunted house story where there's a ghost that's inside the house and it's haunting the house, but this house is so important to the story, but this story would not be the same without Key House. So this is about a family who, after a tragedy, move into the patriarch's childhood home. Now, this is a very beautiful mansion, but it has some secrets hidden inside. This house has keys hidden throughout the house and throughout the grounds, and these keys open magical doors. Now, these doors may lead to fantastical places, they may give you magical powers, or they may let other things from other realms into our reality. The 3 Locke children are our protagonists in this tale, and they have to race to find these keys, master them, and learn how to unlock these different doors. They are racing against a dark entity that will stop at nothing to open these doors and create something a little bit dark, a little bit mysterious. This is like a dark fantasy, but it also has a lot of horror elements. Joe Hill is Stephen King's son. He writes a lot of really wonderful horror, but this is such a fun series. I absolutely love it. There's 6 volumes to the graphic novel series, and there's also a Netflix adaptation that is a lot of fun as well. It starts off being like a really true to the graphic novel adaptation. It kind of takes it in a little bit of a different direction, but in a way that's still fun. I just really love this concept. It's a darker fantasy. If you like supernatural and darker magic in your horror, this is definitely a graphic novel series, and that would be be right up your alley. The next recommendation that I have for y'all today is Mexican Gothic by Silvia Moreno-Garcia. This takes place in 1950s Mexico. We are following our protagonist, Noemi. She receives a very distressing letter from her cousin, and this cousin has recently been married. She lives in the countryside, very isolated, and Noemi gets a letter from her that makes her suspect that her cousin might be in trouble. So she heads straight to the manor to visit with her cousin and make sure everything's okay. And upon arrival, everyone reassures her that no, the letter, no big deal, everything is fine. Everything is so fine. Why doesn't Noemi stay and become a guest at this beautiful manor in the countryside? So Noemi does. She wants to keep an eye on her cousin, and as she does, weird things start happening in this house, and Noemi begins to fear for both her cousins and her own life. This is how you do Gothic, okay? I know the title is Mexican Gothic. It's a perfect title for this book. If you like Gothic literature, if you like the Gothic classics, Gothic haunted house novels, I think you would really love this one. I love the slow and creeping sense of dread that you get from this novel. The manor, High Place, is absolutely creepy. You really fear for Noemi. It's a creepy situation, not just the house, but the people inside it. And the ending to this one is just absolutely wild. So if you are looking for a modern Gothic that really pays ode and homage to the classics and does something a little bit different with it, then I think you would absolutely love Mexican Gothic. My next haunted house recommendation is one that I really wouldn't put it into fantasy, but I know a lot of people like who don't normally read horror especially maybe are looking for something a little bit horror adjacent for spooky season. So that is where this next book comes in, and that is Slade House by David Mitchell. Slade House is a dark fantasy about a house that can only be found every 9 years, and much like the Hotel California, once you enter you never want to leave, or maybe you can't ever leave. We are following this house. This book really jumps from time period to time period. We're following different protagonists every 9 years as they are invited to this house and they enter and see the horrors that await them inside. This one I would definitely say is more dark fantasy than horror, but it does get really creepy. The house is creepy. It's very central to this story. It's definitely a like cosmic kind of genre bending take on a haunted house story. If you like historical fiction, if you like books that kind of feel like a bunch of little vignettes all put together into one, and just like some very cosmic, surreal. If you've ever read anything else by David Mitchell, you know he takes the mundane and the fantastical and blends them really well. So this is a really good option, again, for people who maybe don't want to go like all the way into super crazy demonic haunted house territory, but want a story that's going to give you chills about a very creepy house. Slade House, I think, is a perfect recommendation for you. And then last but not least, I'd like to recommend I Call Upon Thee by Ania Ahlborn. This is one of my favorite books. Well, it's technically a novella, but this is one of my favorite works by this author. This is a haunted house story that is generally so creepy. I read this a number of years ago now, and I still remember scenes like I had read it yesterday. This is very compelling horror. We're following our main character who she has always believed, like as a child, she believed her house is haunted. She moved away. As an adult, she starts to think that, potentially, it was just the imaginings of a child. Her house is not actually that haunted. However, when she has to come back to her family home, the house that she was raised in as a child, creepy things start happening, and she starts to realize that potentially this house is actually haunted, and there are dark things in this house that may or may not have been waiting for our main character to return. This is such a creepy book. This is a perfect book to read like during Halloween itself because it's a novella. It's shorter. You can get through it in a day. There are just some very creepy, unsettling moments. This is a perfectly paced novella, and it was what made me really dive into Ania Ahlborn's work and really grow to appreciate her as an author. So haunted house horror, very creepy things going on. I Call Upon Thee is definitely going to give you those haunted house scares. So there you have it, friends. Those are some haunted house book recs for this spooky season. Definitely let me know down below if you're going to check any of these out. Thank you all so much for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, please be sure to give it a thumbs up. Leave a comment down below letting me know if you'd like to see a part 2. I could definitely do a lot more parts to this recommendation series because I love haunted house horror. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel for all of the bookish horror and cozy gaming content. Stay safe, stay spooky, and I will see y'all in the next video. Bye!